You don't think you will ever change and write books that incorporate white lives into them substantially?
I have done.
In a substantial way?
You can't understand how powerfully racist that question is, can you? Because you could never ask a white author, when are you going to write about black people? Whether he did or not, or she did or not. Even the inquiry comes from a position of being in the center.
And being used to being in the center.
And being used to being in the center. And saying, you know, is it ever possible that you will enter the mainstream? It's inconceivable that where I already am is the mainstream.
They looked at just 12 southern states between 1877 to 1950. Turns out there were 3,959 victims of what they call racial terror lynchings.
My name is Mrs. Fannie Lou Hamer. It was the 31st of August in 1962 that 18 of us traveled 26 miles to the county courthouse in Indianola to try to register to become first-class citizens.
I don't know what most white people in this country feel, but I can only include what they feel from the state of their institutions. I don't know if white Christians hate Negroes or not, but I know that we have a Christian church which is white and a Christian church which is black. I know, as Malcolm X once put it, that the most segregated hour in American life is high noon on Sunday. That says a great deal for me about a Christian nation. It means that I can't afford to trust most white Christians and certainly cannot trust the Christian church. I don't know whether the labor unions and their bosses really hate me. That doesn't matter, but I know I'm not in their unions. I don't know if the real estate lobby is anything against black people, but I know the real estate lobbies keep me in the ghetto. I don't know if the Board of Education hates black people, but I know the textbooks they give my children to read and the schools that we have to go to. Now, this is the evidence. You want me to make an act of faith, risking myself, my wife, my woman, my sister, my children, on some idealism which you assure me exists in America, which I have never seen.
They are not just gangs of kids anymore. They are often the kinds of kids that are called super predators.
Slavery was justified morally, biologically, theoretically, scientifically, everything else. And it seems to me that white America must see that no other ethnic group has been a slave on American soil. That is one thing that other immigrant groups haven't had to face. The other thing is that the color became a stigma. American society made the Negro's color a stigma.
In my opinion, the young generation of whites, blacks, browns, whatever else there is, you're living at a time of extremism, a time of revolution, a time when there's got to be a change. People in power have misused it, and now there has to be a change, and a better world has to be built, and the only way it's going to be built is with extreme methods. And I, for one, will join in with anyone, don't care what color you are, as long as you want to change this miserable condition that exists on this earth.
What the Gay Rights Ordinance in San Francisco, the main focus is to prevent the people who are already employed, who are gay, who, if they want to come out and break down the stereotypes, prevents them from being fired.
I am not calling the gentleman, Mr. Meadows, a racist for doing so. I'm saying that in itself, it is a racist act.
Is this the land of the free and the home of the brave? No. Is this a land with liberty and justice for all? No. Is this one nation, indivisible, under God? No. Either let us practice the democracy we are preaching, or shut up.
Well, there's no single simple meaning of the term revolutionary. A revolutionary is a man or a woman who is a lot of things, but basically the revolutionary wants to change the nature of society in a way to promote a world where the needs and interests of the people are responded to.
It doesn't take much to look on the local news every night and see how many black kids, black boys, black men are being killed with these stand your ground defenses that these people raise. Then they get off. I am a mother too. And I have a son. And I care as much for my son as y'all care for y'all's. But my son doesn't walk the same path as yours does.
FBI Director J. Edgar Hoover today asserted that the Black Panthers represent the greatest internal threat to the nation.
Every incident that have been tipped off in this country in the last 2 years up north have been tipped off by uniformed police. Now, I'm not saying the police is right or wrong. I'm saying when you have these incidents that's tipped off with this one symbol, then we should look into it and see what it is. When 22 million people, be they black or white, start hollering police brutality, then it's time to start listening to 22 million people and going in. A lot of people say, well, it's not police brutality. Police brutality is not when a cop necessarily knocks me upside the head. It's when a cop calls me nigger when he's making the arrest. It's when he handles me wrongly in every process of processing the arrest. This is a form of police brutality.
America's not unique in its sins as a country. We're not unique in our evils. I think where we may be singular is our refusal to acknowledge them and the legends and myths we tell about our inherent, goodness to hide and cover and conceal so that we can maintain a kind of willful ignorance that protects our innocence. I've had the privilege of growing up in a tradition that didn't believe in the myths and the legends because we had to bear the brunt of them.
Republicans in February blocked Senator Bernie Sanders' bill to provide $21 billion in medical and other benefits for veterans.
When our men and women come home from war, some wounded in body, some wounded in spirit, I don't want to hear people telling me it's too expensive to take care of those wounded veterans. I don't accept that. If you think it's too expensive to take care of veterans, don't send them to war.
Back in 1998, a black man, James Byrd Jr., accepted a ride from 3 white men. Instead of taking him home, they drove him down a remote Jasper County road, beat him, and dragged him for 3 miles behind their pickup truck.
I am, I think, quite disgusted, really.
Mic check. What's going on, everyone? How y'all feeling today? Is my mic up loud enough? Hold on, let me just throw him up a little bit. I'm gonna yell anyway. I don't know why I'm tripping, acting like when I get into it, I ain't gonna get into it. What's going on? This is the section. What I want you guys to do right now, if you haven't done it, we just start the page. So what I want you to do is follow us, subscribe, like the page, hit the notification bell so that we can get it cracking and get it, build the page up and get this movement going. You know what I'm saying? So today I want to talk about. I've been seeing. I think they put out a study today. If you guys have been watching the news about the coronavirus, and as we know, stop it, goddamn cat. Y'all know about my cat. I'm gonna kill him. I swear I'm gonna kill him. I love him though. I wish I had a picture of him so I can bring him over here. But they were talking about the coronavirus and the people that are affected, the amount of cases that we have today. I think it exceeded 1,200. It's almost at 1,300 people that have died from the coronavirus. Let me see. I should have had this up already. Just to give y'all some statistics as of today. So I'm just going off Google right quick. So it says worldwide, I'm right over here. It says you have 1,413,415 people that has been infected, and you have 81,000, a little over 81,000 that's died. In the U.S., you have almost 400,000, if you guys can see it, 396,000 that are infected, and we're almost at 1,300, like I said, 12,758 people that have died from the coronavirus. And so I wanted to talk about this in a more narrow, kind of narrow it in a little bit and talk about like black people's, how it affects, now, as we all know in this country, as with everything that goes on, that black people are the way we are affected by certain things is disproportionately. It's like it's worse. Whatever happens to us, it's always extreme. Whether it's heart disease, whether it's income inequality. I mean, if it's a social thing, if it's an economical thing, we're always affected more. I feel like I can't even get my words together. More intensely, there's a larger effect and a more intense effect on the black community, and that has a lot to do with our standing in this country and the laws that prevent us from receiving health care and, our attitudes toward health care because of the inequality and the lack of health care that we've received throughout our time in here, throughout generations. I mean, the majority of people that are black that don't have health care and they get sick, they'll just try to ride it out and be like, okay, I'm just let this, we'll see what, you know what I mean? They'll just ride it out because they don't have the money to go to the doctor. Person had to get shot or something to go to the ER, but that's kind of our disposition when it comes to health care for a majority of us. And that's what I'm speaking on, the majority of us that's affected, not the people that are not affected. But there's been a lot of rumors, propaganda. You know how we are sometimes, talking about what we can't get. That's the white man's virus and all that dumb shit that's gonna kill us. And so I just wanted to get into that and show y'all some videos and things to just wake y'all the fuck up, really, and to for y'all to realize this can happen to anyone. Even if you don't have any symptoms, even if you they call it a type A symptomatic, where you don't feel the effects, and but it's still in you. You can give it to your granny, and if you give it to your granny can die, and you need to take that into consideration, because you don't want to be the one that, oh, I had it and then I gave it to my granny because I wasn't paying attention. I was going outside, and then she died. That's been happening. So there's a couple. First off, I have a guest and a friend of mine, Dr. Allie Hicks. She's a mental health expert, and let's see if this thing is working. What's up, Allie? Can you speak?
Yes. Hello. How are you?
Okay. I think you gotta go ahead.
We good?
Yeah. Are we good? Can you hear it?
Yep. I can hear you just fine.
Okay. Perfect. How you doing?
Good. I mean, as good as we can all be, right?
Yeah, for sure. So just introduce yourself to everyone. Tell them who you are, what you do, and then we can kind of get into it.
Hi, my name is Dr. Allie. I am a mental health expert. So I have my PhD in clinical psychology, and I do a lot of my work in human behavior and understanding the human condition in very atypical ways. Like, you may have seen me on Love and Hip Hop. You may have seen me on I'm Your Fiance, Oprah Winfrey Network, different radio shows, and Access Hollywood. I bring information to people in a public space because I feel like, why not, right? Let's talk about this stuff. Let's talk about how mental health impacts the way that we develop, the way we grow, the way we experience our lives. I'm all about it. I'm a big fat nerd, and I know Ty personally, and we are we love to argue with one another because we both love to read and love to do research and and embrace healthy discourse.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. That's funny. We be getting into it when we be at my aunt's house. Yeah. I've been knowing her for a long time now. I'm 12, 15 years or something like that. It's been a minute. Yeah. She's a good friend of my sister cousin, Lakeisha. That's how we met. But so thinking about the things that you deal with mental health, Allie. We've been in the house now, as you know, my aunt passed away, so I was in LA, and then I came back home, and I came back here about a week and a half ago now, almost 2 weeks, and I've been in the house, and it's kind of difficult to stay in the house, and you get stir crazy, and you start to feel lonely, and I would say for 4 or 5 days, I've been in a depressed state where I just didn't want to do nothing. I was sleeping the entire day. I'll eat and sleep. And I felt myself kind of falling into it. So what should we be like mindful of, just as people, everyone that's in the house, and especially black people, because we don't even like to talk about mental health and whether we have it or not, and a lot of, I mean, we're no different than anybody else. We probably have it even more just because of the circumstances that surround us in this country. So what advice, what should we be doing, and what have you been seeing since, or hearing about since this coronavirus, as far as mental health is concerned?
I mean, there's a lot. I think the mental health conversation is a conversation that nobody's having yet. A lot of people are talking a lot about the physical symptoms and the physical impact of the coronavirus, and how, as a planet, we are suffering and struggling. It's not just the United States; it's everyone on whole around the world that is dealing with this. But it's leaving each of us feeling isolated.
Yeah.
Because we're all being forced to stay in our home. I've actually been in my home for a month.
Oh wow.
I know, full month, literally
That's
not left the house.
crazy. Hell yeah, that's crazy. We would have been in our home a minute because Laverne died, but even there we were I stayed in the house, but they wasn't quite staying in the house. And now Lois, she likes staying in the house now, because I'm telling her, because we like to feel like we Superman, especially Auntie. She like to feel like she's Superman. I'm telling her, like, no, you gotta stay in the house, man. So it's
about today. I was like, stay inside. I said, listen, don't do it for you, do it for me. I can't lose you.
Exactly.
Think about and I think one thing also for those of us Black and brown people in particular, we tend to be collectivistic culturally, right? It's not just about us. We don't really exist on our own. We exist in a group, in a unit. Yeah. Life is about connecting with our family, interacting, going to barbecues and cookouts, church, and social events are a big part of the Black culture. Yeah. And so engaging in social distancing, I think, has been quite difficult for some people. I mean, not everyone, obviously everyone's different. But you see some videos of like things happening in like Baltimore where a lot of people are like, nah, I ain't going inside. Like, I won't be in these streets.
That's crazy.
And I understand the desire to connect.
Yeah.
Right? Because as a collectivistic culture, we need to connect. Human connection is the central component to humanity, right? We have our frontal lobe, which helps us learn how to connect people. So when I talk about our frontal lobe, I mean the front part of our brain, which is the last part of our brain to evolve.
Yeah.
It's the most evolved part of us, and it helps us connect. We release oxytocin to connect people. And oxytocin is a hormone, all of bonding hormone. Like women release it when they breastfeed their baby, right? We release it when we make love to people. We release it when we make physical contact with somebody or look them in the eye. But when we connect to people on social media, we do not necessarily release oxytocin. We release dopamine, which is a hormone all about addiction. And so what we're seeing now is people are definitely entering into either like a pseudo depression, or maybe people who have had a history of depression might be experiencing some relapse, because one key symptom of depression is isolation.
Yeah.
So as people enter a typical depressive state, not necessarily during this time period, they begin to notice that they do engage in society less and less, and which serves to isolation feeds depression in a way, because you're not getting information from the outside world anymore. It's just you in your house, in your head.
And your own thoughts. Yeah, that's what I was about to say. In your own thoughts. That's been my thing too. It's like being isolated, not having someone to like have the conversations with all the time, and being in my head and starting to think about everything that's going on with not having a job. How's this gonna work out? I'm from LA, so I'm all the way across the country. All that stuff, like me just sitting on that, has really just kind of throws me deeper and deeper into it.
A lot of the way we cope is physical. I'm a physical coper, right? I run. I do a 3-minute jog every morning. Right?
Yeah.
And when I tell you I have not left the house in a month, I mean I have not left the house. I am not getting this. So I'm like, I'm not going out. And so I have 3 miles worth of energy stored up inside of my body every day. And so for me, I'm sure a lot of people, it becomes manifest in anxiety.
Wow.
Right? Because it's all this energy. And a lot of us physical copers, we need to remove energy from our body in order to process a lot of these negative thoughts, in order to process a lot of these worry thoughts, which can really go at a time like this. And so I think one of the first things I've been recommending to a lot of people is creating a pattern, right? Creating a schedule. What time do you wake up? what time do you go to sleep? Do you drink tea before you go to sleep? Do you do yoga? Do you meditate? Do you read a book? What do you do? Decrease your access to media and news, because a lot of the media right now is just kind of tallies of people who have died. And in weeks, like this is for Cali, this is week 3 of our quarantine, and I believe you're in week 4 in New York, right? Weeks 3 and 4 are the worst weeks. This is when people start getting sick. This is when the cases increase the most. This is when we know someone who's gotten it. We know a few people who's gotten it. We maybe know someone who's passed away from it. This is when the depression and the sadness sets in, because it's been so long and things are looking a little bit more dire, and it looks like things aren't going to get better or change. But I want everyone to have faith that one of the only consistent aspects of human life is that change is inevitable. And what is happening now will not stay forever. It won't. And weeks 5 and 6 will probably be better, looking especially at models from Italy, Europe, and China. 5 and 6, the case started to plateau, and so obviously your mental health starts to plateau. But for anyone who's lost anybody, there's going to be a very complex form of grieving, because you won't be able to maybe attend the funeral.
Yeah, that's what happened with us, with the funeral. And this, I don't want to say this is before. Oh, this is Twin. Say hey, Twin. Say hey to everybody. Look, he done. Look, he trying to get over. There you go, man. But that's what happened to us. When my auntie passed away. First, I remember, I guess the funeral home had a meeting, and they was like, only 10 people can be there. It kept going up and down, and then they finally settled on only 50. Now, you know how large my family is and how big the family is, and they only let 50 people in. And then we couldn't bury her to the next day. And then in Inglewood, at Inglewood Memorial Park, it was only 10 people. If you look on my Instagram, you'll see the 10 people that could be there was there, and we took a picture of it, and that's all that they allowed. And yeah, I saw the video yesterday of a lady that even before, she couldn't even say bye to her husband because they wouldn't let her in, and she had to do it through. Luckily, there was a phone, and the nurse was able to go in there and do it through FaceTime, and that caused depression. I mean, that could even probably cause suicide. I don't know. What do you think?
Cases of suicide. There's been some reported cases of suicides in Italy as associated with coronavirus, and some suicides in the United States have already been reported. I don't have any statistics on whether there's been like a drastic increase or whether this is just, a few here and there. But with depression, that is one of the symptoms. And so I would more so be concerned if somebody had a pre-existing depression, like if they had a history of depression and a history of suicidality. And because I think for the rest of us, we are in an acute stressful moment. But one thing I know about the human spirit is that humans are good at adapting.
Yeah.
Adaptation is the core component to evolution. And without the ability to adapt, it is difficult to further evolve in the environment that you found yourself in. And one thing about us humans is that is what we do.
Yeah.
We identify patterns, we adapt, and we make a way to survive. And so I have all the faith in the world that those of us that are experiencing this right now, this unique, horrible, terrifying experience, will be able to find a way to create meaning. And that's what I've been talking to people about as well, is figuring out ways to create meaning from all of this. How to find a way to turn this into transformation, turn this into hope, turn this into make sure this never happens again. Right? How to make sure that us as a planet maintain our health, maintain responsibility, and constantly care for those around us. Right? Because staying in isn't just about like, oh, the government's trying to control me. They're telling me I can't go anywhere, like you said. No, it's about your auntie. It's about your grandma. It's about your parents. Like you're not doing it because Donald Trump told you to do so. Dr. Fauci or whatever. I cannot ever pronounce his last name. Because they told you
Fauci's right.
Fauci. You're doing this because you want to make sure that your family is okay. You don't want to be someone who's what are they called, the walking well, and you walk into your grandma and get her sick. I have a 99-year-old grandma, and my other grandma's 93. I'm not going to see them for months.
Exactly. I think somebody's grandmother that was 91 died today, right? Somebody's grandmother that was 91 died today. No, for sure. They did. Yeah. In Louisiana. Illinois.
Oh, it's just the heaviness, and I think that for those of us that are healthy and at home, there's a lot of people who are battling boredom. And there's this author named Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, which is an impossible name to spell. And he's written this beautiful book called Flow.
Mm-hmm.
And in the book, he talks about flow is this optimal experience of engaging in something that you love so much that you lose track of time, right? When you're painting or running or riding a bike.
Like the flow, like when Kobe's in the flow and he's scoring 60, like that. Yeah.
It's like time doesn't exist anymore. All of a sudden you haven't eaten in 5 hours and you're like, oh my God, I've been so into this book, or I've been so into this, art project I was doing. And flow is this optimal band of attention we have between being fundamentally bored and being fundamentally anxious. So if we're too anxious, we can't engage in flow. And if we're too bored, we're not engaging in flow either.
Okay.
And so I think that a challenge, because the more flow you engage in, the less depression you engage in, because the more meaning you find in your life. And so the challenge that I would pitch to everyone listening is find a way to engage in flow, even in spite of anxiety and in spite of boredom.
Yeah, okay.
And I don't even go on TikTok and do a video. I mean, create meaning.
You know what?
Find
you bringing that up. Well, this is definitely I created. I thought about some stuff, and I was thinking about everything that we're going through right now, and collectively we all understand. And I went on a little rant yesterday about it because it's frustrating, but I just hope people get it. And I'm gonna post it on my IG as well. But like right now that we're going through this coronavirus, we all understand and we all empathize with each other because we're all dealing with this. You know how to say this is what we are dealing with. We can get through this together and things like that. And I look at, and that's great. And I think we should be collective and encouraging each other to get through it. But it became frustrating to me because what I started to think about is people have an empathy. Like, why are we so selfish in the sense that we only have empathy when we go through it? Like, we have to go through it. Like, there's been so many people that I've interviewed, like with mass shootings. I've interviewed the people in the Virginia Tech, in Aurora, Colorado, and Newtown, all these families. And even they say the same thing. They was like, I never thought that it would happen to me, so I never got involved. And it happened, and then I got involved, and it took them, and thank God that they're involved. But imagine if what happened in Newtown, if what happened in Newtown would have sparked the parents in Colorado. Maybe Colorado wouldn't happen. Maybe if they started standing up for gun rights, then maybe Colorado wouldn't happen. Maybe that, the fact is, just because it doesn't happen to you doesn't mean that it's not important and it's not still happening. And how that relates to what we're going through right now is because, we're going through it collectively. We all want the government and Congress to pass these bills, these stimulus, to make sure that people have money, to make sure, Cuomo put in an executive order so that renters won't evict people for 3 months. And all those things because of what's going on, because no one thought that this would happen, right? And that's great, man. But people go through this every day and no one gives a fuck about it. I mean, outside of it being a collective thing, in Los Angeles last year, homelessness went up 16%. And there was a lot of people that's homeless, that are working homeless, that don't even have enough money to pay rent. And that same year, last year, on the ballot in November, there was an initiative to have rent control, and it didn't pass. You know what I mean? And it did not pass, period. Even though LA Times had already put the article out there about in LA County it going up 16%. And I'm like, I want people to be able to connect what's going on here to, and it's good, but have that same compassion for people. Just because you're not going through it doesn't mean it's not happening, and they need somebody to fight for them too, because no one is hearing them. People get evicted every day because something just happens. People lose their job every day because something just happens. I mean, having Medicare for all, having some type of security blanket, even universal income, those type of things help, because that's what all those things we're asking for right now. We're literally asking for the government to do right now, and it's because, it's not just happening to poor people, it's happening to elite people, it's happening to everybody. So now all of a sudden we care, but it's like we need to have that same compassion for the people that don't have a voice. You know what I mean? Because right now we understand it because we're going through it, and people go through this stuff every day, or every year, every day. You know what I'm saying?
The fundamental attribution bias.
Yeah.
People tend to believe that when they make a mistake, like when I make a mistake, it's because something unexpected happened, right? The universe and the devil and all of these horrible things, right? It was a mistake. It was an accident. But when somebody else does the same exact thing and makes the same exact mistake, it's because they're lazy, or they're not intelligent enough, or they don't work hard enough, or you attribute other people's shortcomings, downfalls to their character, and you attribute your own downfalls to happenstance. And I think that we have this empathy break where it is for us to care about a lot of people, and it's difficult for us to care about people that are outside of our group.
Yeah.
We tend to care about people within our group, and the group gets down to sometimes like your family, and then it kind of like grows out, maybe your ethnic group, your religion, your culture. And so I think that it is a fundamental flaw, because obviously there's people who have had health problems without insurance forever.
Yeah.
We've been fighting for national health care, which is one of the reasons why I believe Sweden hasn't shut down their country, right? Sweden hasn't shut down anything because they understand that this quarantine is not going to end until we reach herd immunity. Okay, so immunity is, that's what a lot of the researchers and doctors have been talking about. 70 to 80% of the people have to have it, and one of the ways we reach herd immunity is through vaccines.
Yeah.
But in the United States, the reason we have to stay in is because we might put too much pressure on our healthcare system. We all get sick at the same time.
Yeah.
We don't have access to, there might not be enough beds, there might not be enough ventilators, there might not be enough PPE if everybody gets sick at the same time. And so they're trying to keep people at home. We can spread it out over the period of time. So maybe we can create a vaccine in time to allow some people to build up an immunity to this so that they won't have to actually catch it, but the vaccine will allow them to have those antibodies available, and then other people will catch it in a way that will allow our medical system to not be overwhelmed. But I think that, a lot of political posturing has happened over the past few years, and a lot of people's personal perspectives about, whether people should have health care or not. Yet again, this attribution bias. If you don't have health care, what have you done to not, and they don't realize that it is a fundamental human right to be able to have access to someone that will make you feel better when you're sick.
Yeah.
You're very sick unto death, or you're minor sick and have a cold or a cough or something smaller, you should be able to go to somebody and seek help. And I think that you're absolutely right. It's just, unless it happens to us, sometimes we don't feel it.
Yeah.
And I've always been this over empathizer. And so I read like a news story about someone who lost a child, like I lost one, right? Like I'm mourning and I'm sad and I'm like down for days, and it's just, it's heavy, and I think it's hard for some people. They don't want to feel those feelings all the time. And so I think they put them away and rationalize so that they can feel okay about their life.
Yeah, man. I think it's to me, it's the most frustrating thing in the world, because obviously, I'm a Bernie supporter, and I'm just looking at how, what Democrats, to me, Democrats are just like Republicans, and I just feel like they act like they're for the people, but they're not for the people. Because if they were, like, this is, and I just hope people use this opportunity, because this is such a great analogy, I think, for Medicare for All. I think also it's an analogy for why communities are the way that they are, and what we need to, because think about how many, like a lot right now they're talking about, they're upset Donald Trump waited too long, he took too long. They knew about the coronavirus building up in China, and they still didn't say nothing, and they tried to play it off. And the whole argument is, if we would have took action earlier, we probably wouldn't have the amount of deaths that we have today, right? So thinking about another pandemic and something like this happening, the idea is not to pass another $2 trillion or $3 trillion to take care of these people because they're going to lose their job and all these things are going to happen. It's to address it earlier so maybe it won't have the same effect socially and economically, right? They look at the inception of the problem versus saying, okay, well, if this happened again, we got to make sure that we have enough money so people can pay rent and do this. No, we're going to make sure that we grab it at the beginning of the thing. And if you look at that in relation to like communities and how people think that building jails and these private prisons are the solution to correcting a person, it's like, no, the inception of it is economic inequality. The inception of they don't have resources, that these, have these communities, 20, you can go down the street, your 20 houses are abandoned, and you have maybe two people. You go to Detroit, Flint, you got 2 people living in an entire block, and there's no jobs, it's gutted, there's no resources, nothing's going on in there. The water is terrible, and they wonder why people are doing crime, and for us, it seems like they just throw us in jail and say, oh, that's going to correct them, or if they don't know. The inception, it's a beginning, it's a reason why. This is an effect of something else, and I think at the same time, like the coronavirus, that argument is an analogy as well to how we approach our inner cities or our cities that have high crime rates, that have high drug rates and things like that. Looking at it as, oh, okay, there's a beginning to this that we need to address because these are all effects of something else that they're dealing with. You know what I'm saying? You feel me on that?
There's a term called allostatic load, and what allostatic load is stress causes a number of processes to go on inside of us, right?
Yeah.
You experience stress, your HPA axis is activated. That's your hypothalamus pituitary adrenal gland axis. Like all of those glands in your body begin to secrete hormones known as glucocorticoids, also referred to as stress hormones.
Yeah.
And they're intended to help you get the fuck out of the way of something that's going to hurt you, right?
Yeah.
But what happens with allostatic load is that we are meant to experience stress for a very short period of time.
Mm-hmm.
In our current culture, and as a result of being a minority in a culture that does not accept you for your minority status, specifically, like we said, African Americans living in the United States, we experience a level of chronic stress that our bodies are not ready to deal with. And so as a result of chronic stress, you have a higher heart rate, right? Because one of the things your body does when you need to run is it raises your blood pressure, it raises your heart rate.
Yeah.
You don't insulin in the same way as you need to burn different types of fuel. So you crave carbohydrate heavy fuel because if you're running from something, you need fast carbs. But if you're living life every day, you do not need fast carbs.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Different types of protein and food and vegetables and stuff like that. And so we begin to see the short-term patterns becoming long-term patterns, which therefore impact the health of the individual. You start to see hardening of the arteries after a period of prolonged stress. You start to see heart disease after prolonged stress. You start to see diabetes. You start to see infertility. You start to see neuronal damage because if you have hardened arteries, the arteries in your brain have also been hardened. You have, more cholesterol building up. You have all of these negative deleterious effects beginning to build, which we see are typical symptoms in the African American community. Mm-hmm. And so you have all of these things building up. And then, like you said earlier, there's a mistrust that has developed in the Black community as a result of being used as, for lack of a better statement, test subjects.
Yeah.
In hospitals back in, the 50s, the 20s, the
yeah, they used to use us to see if we got the syphilis. I forgot. They made a movie about it. They gave all Black people syphilis and didn't let them know that they had syphilis. It's crazy that you just brought up something that I wish I knew the guy's name. But this guy, he was on the Hill the other day, and he really broke down the reason why Joe Biden, why so many older conservative Blacks voted for Joe Biden in South Carolina. And he broke it down, but he talked about that distrust that you know, things never change. And when we hear a white person promise us some stuff, we have apprehension because it's never happened. And so what do? We vote for somebody that didn't promise us anything, that promised to go back to the way it was. You know what I mean? And like that, how we see ourselves in this country. You know what I'm saying?
There's also a level of hopelessness that begins to take root in a person when they see no way out and no change is possible.
Yeah.
And so looking at, there's this hopelessness dichotomy, and nothing will change, or there's nothing I can do to change my reality, which leads to a lot of other negative or deleterious effects on a person's psyche.
Yeah.
And so we see how our psyche and the way that we think, the stress that we experience can impact us on a physical level. And so then you have a disease pop up like coronavirus or just a flu or a number of different things, you know, cancers and things like that. And it is definitely hard on a person's body if you've had a long history of stress, which has led to a number of health conditions. And so I think as a community, it's really just time for us to wrap each other up. And like I said earlier, we are such collective individuals. And I think the Christian church has been a big deal for the Black community.
Yeah.
And now we're at a point when we can't meet.
Yeah.
A lot of churches are fighting against these social distancing orders. But to be honest, it is definitely smarter to social distance.
Yeah.
And you're met online, you know, have your church meet online or something like that. But that has been a stalwart of the Black community. And that has been where we've gotten our energy, where we've gotten our support, where we've been able to, you know, express our feelings and frustrations with the way society has treated us. And we don't have that right now in the way that we know, at least not in Cali. I don't know
For
if people
sure.
do it
No,
in the South.
absolutely. It's the same way out here.
Yeah, it's not happening on the East Coast
Yeah.
and the West Coast. And so I think that there definitely is going to be an increase in people feeling a little helpless and hopeless. And there will be an end to that.
Yeah.
Might take it back to business as usual. Everyone's like, well, when are things going to go back to normal? One thing, after something's happened, you don't go back to the way you were before it happened.
Exactly. And I think that's something good to point out too.
Yeah, you grow up, right? I think that us as a country hopefully will be better for this. Like you were talking about, you know, how do we prevent this? How do we plan for the future? How do we make sure that we have enough space in our national budget, our local budget, to get more access to ventilators or medical equipment that we need, or more space in our hospitals than we have in our prisons, right? How do we go about, you know, treating people in a way that's empathetic and understanding, so that if my neighbor is sick or injured, am I close enough to them to leave them food at their doorstep? And do they trust me enough to take that? You know, how do we create a connection for the future? And that's what I'm hoping will develop, is that through this trial, through this struggle, we will all be better neighbors, better members of society for one another. That's my hope. But you know,
I feel you. I hope the same. I hope the same. I just, you know, what I was just talking about earlier, like I want that to be a part of it too. Like I really want, you know, these people to like realize, like, damn, we needed help. We needed assistance from our government when our backs was against the wall. And there's people that need that every day. We need those security blankets are real, and they need to be there for them. And you know, a lot of times people just don't realize that. I'm literally gonna take it upon myself to DM a couple people that I think Brooke. I've been following Brooke on CNN. She has the coronavirus, so she's been doing some stuff online. And Cuomo every now and again, Cuomo will respond to a tweet. So him too, because I think sometimes people just don't realize it. I realize it because, you know, I've been through it, and I know people that's going through it. So hopefully we can have more compassion for people and understanding for people outside of our own circles and things like that. But I know you got to go in a minute. I want to get to these videos. So the reason why I got Dr. Ali on here is because for all her insight, what we've been talking about, and I wanted to just get her take on, you know, the idea of black people not being able to catch the coronavirus. We can't get that Rona. It's not ours. But I had a, you know, what'd you say? I know, right? Hey, but that's I don't know. That's black people for some reason. We don't want it, whatever it is. That's that white people shit. But you know, what I was going to bring up is I posted something on my IG today about the Prime Minister of the UK, Boris Johnson, and this is a clip of a video. It's a little tongue in cheek, but it's serious, and it's something that he really said, and I want to show y'all that, and then show y'all where he is now, because it's real. People playing games like it can't happen to them. And like I said, you don't want to wait till your granny died to know that it can happen to you. There's things that you can do right now, because it ain't picking and choosing who it affects. So I'm gonna show this video. We can check it out. Hold on one second.
Tell you that I'm shaking hands continuously. I was at a hospital the other night where I think there were actually a few coronavirus patients, and I shook hands with everybody. You'll be pleased to know, and I continue to shake hands, and I think it's very important. Hi folks, I want to bring you up to speed with something that's happening today, which is that I've developed mild symptoms of the coronavirus, and on the advice of the Chief Medical Officer, I've taken a test that has come out positive, so I am working from home and self-isolating, and that's entirely the right thing to do.
That's a little tongue-in-cheek, but he has coronavirus, and he was one of the people, just like Trump, saying that that he couldn't get it. And here's like an update of where he is right now.
On the other hand, very troubling news coming out of the UK. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson was admitted to the hospital. We found out that he is, in fact, in intensive care and had been taking oxygen. They said he was not on a mechanical ventilator, but had taken oxygen. They do say, though, that he's in stable condition. So that's encouraging, at least. But obviously, anytime you're in an intensive care unit, that's a very dire situation.
Yeah, I mean, a head of state in an intensive care unit is just a terrible situation. And, the hearts are with the British people who are, it's a somber time there. The Queen, as we covered yesterday, doing her first address, or only her fourth address ever to the nation in a time of crisis. And it's largely because of developments like this. The Prime Minister is in the hospital, now he's in an intensive care unit. And we know from similar cases that it takes quite a bit of time for recovery, even after you're out of the ICU.
Right.
It can. So I showed you guys that. What do you think about that?
I mean, obviously, I've been worried about Boris Johnson for since I heard the news.
Yeah.
I don't want anybody to get sick. I don't care what your perspective was.
Yeah,
I don't care.
of course.
Hate. I connect with all living people and all creatures, and I don't want anyone to be sick. I don't want anyone to pass away. And so I'm definitely very, I can imagine how the British people are very distraught about this. But it is kind of a reinforcer for before you, I go on the air a lot, and before I go on the air, I do research. Yeah. Because the last thing I want to do is say something that can then instantly be used against me later.
Yeah.
And so being very cautious, and I think with this whole pandemic, I think maybe people are too aggressive, and sometimes you just got to take a beat. And I don't know what he's been saying, honestly, because I haven't been keeping up. I've just been very concerned when I heard he was in care. I was like, oh my God, that's horrible. I hope that he gets better. And I know that I think he has a fiance and she's pregnant, and that she's been very stressed and worried about him. And so for me, I'm just so sad. And I hope that she's okay. The baby's okay. Actually, a girlfriend of mine from college is an gynecologist in New York. And she just delivered the first baby to a mother with coronavirus.
Wow.
And New York. And so it's just heavy. And the last thing we want to happen. And I just hope beyond everything that him and his family.
Absolutely. And I agree. That's the last thing that you want for something like this to happen. And I showed it to one is to show that you shouldn't play with this. And I feel because of that type of attitude, he's a leader of a country, just like Trump is. A lot of people that have coronavirus and a lot of people that probably died, it probably was an effect of them playing it off as if it wasn't nothing, trying to be strong men or whatever, doing that. Like, they don't understand that their influence and people listen to them. But, I showed that because I wanted to show this. This is Waka Flocka talking about black people and getting coronavirus.
So coronavirus, are we not worried about it at all?
It's fake.
You think it's an agenda?
Man, I don't think minorities can't catch it. We sure.
Say that one more time.
Minorities can't catch it.
Minorities can't catch coronavirus.
Nah.
Why do you say? Why do you believe that?
Name one.
I don't know, but it could happen.
Name one, though.
It could happen.
Name one
if
of
it
us.
hasn't happened, it could happen.
We all descended from the same person.
I don't believe that.
Now,
I don't
did we
know.
catch it? I'm not trying to.
Didn't it hit Atlanta recently?
Yeah.
No, it hit the people passing through our airport.
Got it.
It ain't touched them soul food folks. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, I don't even like the word minority because I feel like, are we really the minority? Or,
No, we're the majority at this
exactly.
point.
So that's what I'm.
See, that to me that's a little irresponsible, you know.
The States population, we are definitely minorities.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, a lot of times when you're in California, you're in New York, and I found this out when I started doing politics. That we're living in a bubble. The middle of the country is completely different. You think everyone is progressive and on your level, and they just not. I think, what are we, 18%? 16%, something like that of the country. We're definitely the minority. But, Waka, go ahead. 13%. So, and Waka Flocka has an influence, man. And you don't think people are watching it, but you got a lot of people that watch this stuff and that watch you and that listen to you because they're just, the worst thing in the world is algorithms, right? Because algorithms reinforce intelligence or stupidity. It doesn't matter. Whichever side you on is going to reinforce that because that's what you're going to be looking up. And, now because of there is a high cases of hypertension, high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes in the black community, we're more receptive to the coronavirus. And this show a little bit of this video talking about the studies. I mean, right now they don't even have like all the studies in place because people haven't been taking records of the demographics and the not just the people that are affected, but whether it's black, white, or Asian or anything like that. And so they were talking about it on CNN. And so let's check this out.
When you look at being black in America, number one, people unfortunately are more likely to be of low socioeconomic status, which makes it harder to social distance. Number two, we know that blacks are more likely to have diabetes, heart disease, lung disease, and I and many black Americans are at higher risk for COVID. It's why we need everyone to do their part to slow the spread.
It's the U.S. Surgeon General just this morning talking about the heightened coronavirus risk for African Americans. Some states have released the racial breakdown of cases and deaths, and those numbers show a disturbing trend, a disproportionate number of African Americans being infected with coronavirus and dying. Joining me to share their expertise in their reporting, Dr. Kamara Jones, the former president of the American Public Health Association, Politico's Laura Barone-Lopez, and CNN's Van Jones. Doctor, I want to start with you, and I've just put up some numbers. I'll get deeper into them in a moment, but just these side-by-sides. Illinois, African Americans make up 15% of the population. They are 42% of the state's coronavirus deaths. In Louisiana, African Americans make up about a third of the population. 7 in 10 of the deaths in Louisiana, African Americans. In Michigan, it's about 14% of the statewide population, more than 40% of the deaths in Michigan from COVID-19 in the African American community. It's a combination of things, I'm sure. Some it's the urban density, some is the disparity in the healthcare systems. What is your biggest takeaway on why this is happening and what can be done?
So, first of all, we have to be clear that in December 2019, none of us was immune, right? So all of us should have an equal opportunity of being infected. But what this virus has done is taken away the mask, the veneer, pulled the sheets off of this myth of equal opportunity in this society. So what is happening is that black folks are getting infected more because they're exposed more. And once infected, they're dying more because their bodies, our bodies, have borne the burden of chronic disinvestment, active neglect in our communities. So when I look at it, it is because of structural racism, which puts us in the more forward-facing jobs so that we're more exposed and less valued, don't even have the protection that we need. And this chronic, the residential segregation that turns into employment segregation, educational segregation, environmental hazard segregation, all of those insults on our bodies have given us more of these so-called pre-existing conditions. So once we're infected, we have more severe outcomes from the disease.
I want you to listen, Van, I want to come to you next, but I want you to listen to the governor of Louisiana, who's looking at these numbers and says, as Dr. Jones just said, this is a horrible thing and we better learn about it as soon as we can.
Right now, slightly more than 70% of all of our deaths are among African Americans, who make up about 32% or so of the overall population of our state. So obviously this is a big disparity, and we're going to try to figure out what that is attributable to and what we can do about that as quickly as possible.
And Van, as you come in, I just want to put the numbers, just Louisiana numbers up side by side, because people need to look at the numbers and let them sink in when you look at it. 33% of the population of the state of Louisiana is African American. 7 in 10 of the deaths in the state of Louisiana are among African Americans. It's just a more than double your proportion of the population. When you hear the governor there, Van, I take him at his word that he is very well intended. You also know the history here. We have a crisis, everybody ramps up, a lot of money gets spent, and then some of the disparities that may have been a major factor in contributing to the crisis, when they're over, they either get forgotten, put aside, or there's not enough resources to deal with them.
Well, look, I was in conversation with the governor yesterday. I know that he is well intentioned, but here's the reality. We got off on the wrong foot here from a media point of view and from a community point of view. Everybody started saying in the black community, this is a white folks thing. You're hearing about white folks in nursing homes. You're hearing about white folks who went to China. And in fact, a rumor got started that black people were literally immune to this disease. That was all over the internet. Started off as a joke. People took it seriously. And in fact, you've seen this before with HIV. Oh, HIV, that's just for gay people. I don't have to worry about it. And then it spread everywhere. This is a disease. The numbers for the black community are going to be completely different than the numbers coming out of China or Italy, because it's an epidemic jumping on top of a bunch of other epidemics already in the black community. We already have an epidemic of high blood pressure, which is lethal if you get this disease. Nobody's saying that. We already have an epidemic of asthma, obesity, etc. In other words, you got to start saying to your black relatives, to your black friends, do you take pills every day? If you take pills every day, are you supposed to? Get your butt in the house and don't come out, because you are going to die. Well, I'm not 80 years old. No, it's not just age. In our community, it's going to be, are you sick? And black people are underinsured, underemployed, and barely healthy on a good day because of things that were just mentioned. We have to change the discussion. We can't say comorbidities. That doesn't mean anything to the people who are in harm's way. The people who are in harm's way, do you take pills every day? Do you got sugar, diabetes? Do you got pressure, high blood pressure, hypertension? You could die in a week. You could not be here. You've got to start screaming this to the black community, or you're going to have a catastrophe on your hands here.
And
so, yeah. What do you think about that, Allie?
That's the heaviest shit I've seen all week. But I think that it's something we need to be paying attention to. And I think that going against the perspective that, we have to be with one another to cope. We have, I think finding ways to cope, finding new ways to connect that allow us to social distance. And when I talk about social distancing, I am not even talking about 6 feet away from somebody.
Yeah.
You be in your house, I need to be in mine.
Yeah, yeah.
That is my social distancing. I do not leave. I'm staying home. And
Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of apps I think that have emerged. Like this house party app is now like exploding. Everybody's doing it. Everybody's on it, and everyone's been talking about it lately. I'm on it. I love it, and it allows you this opportunity to connect with people. Your friends and family in a way, kind of a house party would. You like pop in on each other and.
Yeah. Oh, I
And
heard
he's like-
about that. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. And I'm sure other people aren't doing it, but I literally will see some of my friends talking and I will just pop in and be like, hey, what's up? I'm here. I don't announce myself or nothing. I just pop in. And
that's right.
it's connected, and I think we're not losing connection. We're gaining life, and we're gaining an ability to connect in the future.
Yeah.
Because if we're so sick that we don't survive, then we're not going to be able to connect, and we're going to be leaving a wake of very, very sad people who miss us. And that news was very scary and very real.
Yeah, I think it's real. I think everyone needs to see it, and hopefully people share that, because we don't think about that. Like when Van Jones said this is an epidemic on top of other epidemics, like we're vulnerable. We're the most vulnerable because of everything else that's been going on, and we got to take that shit seriously. And you look at the amount of people that's dying. Maybe they're not showing as many black people on CNN or whatever. I haven't really seen. I've seen a couple of black families that they showed on CNN dying, but right now, you starting to see Louisiana and Illinois just now starting to climb that ladder, and 70% is a lot. That's a lot. That's not a joke. That's nothing to sneeze at. It's nothing to joke about. And this is the reason why I brought up. I showed the video of the Prime Minister of the UK, and then showed the video of Waka Flocka because of their influence. Because people listen to them, and people take action based on what they hear from them. They have influence over people, and you have to assume responsibility for those people in times like this, because like we're not regular. A lot of black people, we all already think that we're not regular. No, we different. We different. We're influential and all that stuff. And at the same time, when it comes to healthcare and when it comes to epidemics, we're not regular. It's gonna be heavier on us, just like incarceration is heavier on us, just like heart disease and hypertension. All those things are heavier on us because of the circumstances that we find ourselves in. And I feel that we, especially those people that have influence, have to be more responsible, because it's not just about you, man. And you know what I'm saying? Take a step back and think a little bit before you speak that, because once you speak it, and especially when it's on social media, it's out there,
Forward, like we were saying before, now that we have a new experience, whether it is negative or not, we have the opportunity to adapt. You have the opportunity to change for the future and figure out what is it I'm going to do next, right? And I think that I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not a medical doctor. I have a PhD in clinical psych, I'll say again. But sitting down with a lot of my friends, colleagues that work at hospitals, around the country, many black doctors are talking about the importance of a plant-based diet.
Yeah.
And that shifting the way that we eat.
I've been doing that too.
Yeah, I've been vegan for 3 years.
Wow.
And it's changed a lot. But I was also raised vegetarian.
Oh, okay.
Is not typical of a lot of people in the country. But being, so it kind of made it easier for me. But I noticed a lot of shifts. And so I think that just becoming and understanding that health isn't just a physical, right? It's the things we eat, the way we think. It's the type of activities we engage in. It's the way we interact with people in our lives. Like they've also talked about how during this quarantine period, domestic violence rates have increased.
Wow.
A lot,
Yeah, because people are at home with each other all the time.
Yeah, and if you're trapped in a house with someone who's raping you, or somebody who's sexually abusing your child, or somebody who's beating you, for a lot of people in a lot of the country, safety is not their home. And there's some of us that are very privileged in like, oh, I'm at home and I'm so bored. But it's like, that's a privilege.
Yeah.
Such a glorious situation in your house that you're bored with the monotony of the wonderful things you have. And I think that we really need to be appreciating that and then finding a way to, for the future or in the present, protect those of us that are now vulnerable in a situation that is the least likely and the least desired situation, where you're trapped with a person who's not kind to you, which can increase your level of stress exponentially.
Yeah. Wow.
And the thing I was really sad when I read about that statistic. And in China, once they were released from quarantine, there was a huge surge in people who filed for divorce.
Interesting, really.
Yeah, we were like,
I didn't read that. What, for real? No, that makes sense like a motherfucker. She said, as soon as they got released from quarantine, you know what? I'm done. I know that's right.
And so also looking at your interpersonal health. So if you
Yeah.
are in quarantine with somebody else, like I am in quarantine with my husband here, and so making sure to maintain the hygiene of your relationship and make sure that, you're not stepping on each other's toes, because, living in apartments like East Coast, West Coast, we don't live in just sprawling homes all the time.
Yeah.
And so you're on top of somebody, and how do you go about maintaining boundaries when you're on top of somebody for 24 hours per month? Stuff like that.
Interesting. Okay, well, perfect. I appreciate that. So, is it anything that you can leave us with? Some ideas, maybe some advice. I know you just gave a lot of advice, but something maybe to leave everyone with moving forward, or some words of encouragement, because you got them.
Pass. Everything in life is impermanent, right?
Yeah.
Happiness is impermanent, and so is sadness and anxiety. This will be over. We will make it. Just keep fighting through. And you will be fundamentally changed on the other side. Just make sure that when you get to the other side that you are fundamentally changed for the better. I have put together a free giveaway that I'm actually giving to people. Yeah. It's a PDF all about how to cultivate and create courage in your life in light of all this fear. And so it'll be up soon. Link to it on my Instagram, which is
tell everyone how they can find you.
Yeah, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Allison Hicks. That is ALLYCINHICKS. Allison is spelled absolutely insane, but yeah, it's Allie Sin with a C, and that's at on Instagram and Twitter. And so you'll be able to download this free giveaway and go through it and begin to monitor your own fear response.
Yeah.
How respond to it so that you can begin to tackle the way that you experience fear, so that for the future, when we get out of this situation, we can all be more courageous.
Perfect. So in addition to following Dr. Allie, y'all can follow me at The Section Independent on YouTube, IG, Twitter, Instagram. That is IG. But on Twitter, it's The Section _INDE, and on IG it's the same thing, and on YouTube and Facebook it's The Section Independent. So you can follow us on The Section, and I appreciate the time. We'll go ahead and leave y'all with this video, and I think we out. Video. Follow us on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, where the progressives have a voice. And remember, share this, like it, subscribe to the channel so we can grow. The Section Independent. That part.